Welcome to race number 3 of the Zwift Racing League for 2022, round 1, race number 3. It's a team time trial. I'll be doing voiceover as it makes sense, and enjoy the commentary from Discord coming from the team as well as my responses. This one gets pretty intense with some on-the-fly audible calls throughout the race to try and get the win and the overall for the world on the day.
This first descent, are we gonna roll it? Are we gonna speed roll it?
If you roll through, you do another 5 seconds on the front and then communicate that you're rolling back.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because that's where we're going to gain all our time is on these descents when we speed roll.
1 minute.
This is the ugliest bike in the whole freaking game.
Oh, it's terrible.
I like the Buffalo bike better than this.
We've all spent $1 million. That's going to be worth zero
It better be.
next week.
10 seconds. 5,
As per usual,
4,
we
3,
take off
2,
pretty full gas.
1, go.
Team time trials, it can come right down to seconds by the end of the race.
You guys should be
So
fined for
every
wearing those
split
socks.
second matters. And any kind of ramp up that takes a while, that's
I'm only
time
gonna wear 'em in
lost.
TTT.
So if you can start hard, go full gas.
Who let the Nathan monster out of the bag?
From there, you
already?
do settle in, obviously, and somebody takes over at the front. Now, because this is immediately a downhill, you'll hear us talking about how to roll through here,
All right.
and we will not be in our exact
Everybody right
order,
here.
but more
Eric, you're
of a
on front.
fluctuating roll through to take the
If
speed
decides to stop
on
rolling
these
it.
negative gradients
we're
that we
descending.
gain
We
from
already made
being
it
in the pack
All right.
and roll it
Let's
through
do
and
it.
not waste that speed until we get to the flats and the uphills.
All right.
Here we go.
You'll notice in this third person camera that I am on a regular road bike and some of the other teammates are. That is not actually the truth, though, of what we are riding. It's just that in the pens we swapped and the game client was already open. And sometimes it doesn't take visually, it is strictly cosmetic.
All right.
What is being used by the entire team is TT bikes. And as you can see in my first person point of view, camera 3, everybody.
All right, Caleb, so-
Camera 3, if you're racing, you're TTing. I don't understand how it is you're not using camera 3, but all that to be said, I am on a TT bike here. It's just cosmetic and obviously using first person point of view, the best point of view. Shout out to Anna and everyone else who watches the rap. You can't see that I am on that TT bike. Make the pass, make the pass. Thank you. Let him roll, let him roll. Go ahead, Caleb, I'm on you.
Caleb's on.
Caleb,
Taking your neck.
we're doing 1 minute? Are we doing 1 minute, right? You said 1?
1 minute.
All right. Caleb, stay till 3 then.
Caleb's on.
That right there is what we would call an audible throughout a team time trial. I'll try and use that term as much as possible
Yeah, so
in
it should
future
be
voiceovers,
Caleb,
but if you're wondering, and
Nathan,
give you a little
Dan,
explanation. But
Brett,
the audible,
Pete,
like
Eric.
in American football, the idea that you're about to go for a planned play, and then right before the snap, right before you snap the ball to start the play, you call a verbal
All right, Caleb,
change,
rolling
a
back.
quick little, hey, we're going to do play 3 instead of 4.
All right.
We just saw that audible happen
Nathan, you're
because
on.
in
Dan, you're
that
next.
dynamic
Dan, you're on the horn.
moment, when the speed was higher of another rider, it was more speed at the front
I'm going to 30
of
after then.
the pack to allow
3:30.
them to roll through and carry it rather than to waste that speed and force them to sit in. So if a rider can come through with the speed and the audible makes sense at those times, and it's got to be a dynamic call on the spot of somebody who's really got an eye on how things are playing out between all the riders at that time, you can call those a lot, and it gains you a ton of time on course because speed is king and queen. It always will be in bike racing. It is of the highest priority to keep as much speed, especially free speed, as you possibly can for the energy you're putting out onto the course.
Dan, you're on in 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dan, you're on. Brett, you're next. Pete, you're in the hole.
I do want to highlight my sync and sprint here being a little bit out of sync with the group. I probably go a little bit too hard here with my orange numbers, and you'll see me disrupt actually the riders in front of me. Right here would be an overlap that is a mistake, in my opinion. This does cause some separation and surges for riders that have to refine their position. It's not bad. Everybody's pretty good on this team at getting right back into position when there is disruption, especially when people are syncing and refinding their position amongst the pack. But as you can see, a little bit ahead there. Look where Flanders ends up. He accelerated and had to then push out one of the riders ahead of him. And that is a domino effect when you do not hold your position. So what I do find is if I don't, I have to sync a lot and then sprint, which is a little bit of a waste of energy. But if I start ramping up a little bit as I move my way backwards without a big sprint and really just slide in, that's usually the best without too much disruption. But it is very difficult a lot of times to time that correctly. You got to really get used to that rhythm, that timing to perfectly fit right on in. You can see here the sync from Dan. He gets right into a sprint. We'll see if he overshoots. I don't think he does. Our speed's really high at this point, though. As you can see him jumping into gigantic orange numbers because we're doing 57 kilometers per hour. Dan actually finds himself in a monster effort just to get back on terms with the kind of speed that we're holding here. You really have to be cognizant of the speed because it's not always going to be the same. That is one thing that's a major learning point, is being cognizant and being aware of the kinds of speeds that are about to pick up even. Like if you just pulled over the top of a climb and the speed's about to go on the downhill, you need to really ramp up a lot earlier as you make your way back into your sync and sprint or into your roll into the back of the pack. If you don't, you can get dropped really quickly, especially with the new speeds on the TT bikes.
Eric, you're next. Caleb, you're in the hole.
Good, Sam. I'm coming. I got it. Rolling.
Be aware of what you have to jump onto. Dan lost the wheel because we were going downhill. Be aware.
Gravel. Sorry. We're good. Eric, you're on in 30.
You'll notice here a lot of disorganization around where the riders are, trying to find their spots. There was a little bit of jostling around. Everybody knew what rider they're supposed to be on, so I don't say anything to anyone here. I don't really make any kind. And plus, we went through a dirt section, which a lot of times does disrupt some things a little bit. You do see some bursts here. Everybody gets right back into line pretty much here, but this was a little bit of wasted energy from riders into orange numbers that weren't necessarily needed. And you can see riders now off the back having to work really hard to get back on terms. And that two riders with, as you can see, Mog as well as Boniface off the back, having to push that extra, essentially what is half a pole for them, that's energy that could have been at the front later. And so if we didn't have that disorganization through the dirt there and more of a straight line, or at least some sort of like grouping up and then rolling through and everybody getting right back to where they needed to be, rather than a couple of avatars pushing through with a lot of speed and then causing gaps because of that accordion effect. If that wouldn't have happened, those riders wouldn't have wasted that energy. That's energy that maybe could have been used at the front at a different time. This really shows, if we watch this from this third-person point of view, at the different times that we get that disorganization, you can really see where efforts get wasted and people are unable to hang on or have to do monster efforts that could have been pulls at the times that we most needed the speed at the front, rather than just trying to get speed to get back onto the back of the pack.
Good pull, Eric.
Now, it doesn't always need to be a major waste, though, of energy. Awareness of what's happening when someone does make a little bit of a mistake, the ability to quickly recover from that really depends on the other riders in the group also, right? Little mistakes where there's a roll through and a push off of an avatar, if it isn't happening constantly, you can, all the other riders can not over respond. If there's an over response from the other riders, it can cause that accordion effect. But if you don't
5,
over respond,
4,
it doesn't get a
3,
second roll through and a
2,
third roll through and a
1.
fourth roll
Nathan,
through
you're
as the
on.
pushing the
Dan, you're
avatar
next.
into places that they
Correct you in the
should
hole.
not be. Behind us right now,
Good
you do
job,
see a
guys.
big kick here coming from Dan as well as Brett. And that, again, is from a little bit of disorganization back here. And in a few minutes here,
Whip it,
you're going to
whip it.
see
Close it down.
people
Back it
really
off just a little,
struggling
close it
from
down.
all of these punches over and over again, where we most likely lost a good amount of seconds here on the day for the overall in the world. And you see Brett here rolling through over the top of me. Now Brett actually has to take over, carry speed on through. This wasn't actually planned. It's fine. We're going to recover well
Yeah.
because he's doing that. You can see, though, we are in the lead at this point. That's the 8 kilometer
Daniel on
marker,
30.
8:48. We do have what looks to be, that's 12, 13,
Good work, guys.
8:30 second, not 30 second, excuse me, 25 second lead
Daniel on
right now
10.
over second place. I do push pretty hard here at this point, and probably not
5,
necessarily
4,
needed.
3, 2.
I
1.
usually do
Dan,
have the
you're
riders
on.
directly on my wheel,
Brett,
but there
you're
was a gap
next.
there.
Peach, you're in the hole.
So then the roll through speed a lot of times when I push at that 7 watts per kilogram is higher, but if it's just going to gap, then it just causes more problems actually. So there's
You
kind of
bet,
a
Dan.
limiter you have to put on yourself with awareness. Here's what I was talking about though. Caleb Carl is
I'm
off
here,
the
Caleb,
back
come
here.
on.
He's still trying to recover from all of
Right
those
here.
gaps that were created earlier, from those big punches from both Dan and Brett, just trying to close gaps that were formed from people causing
There we go.
disruption.
Good work.
If you
Yeah.
go back a few minutes, you'd see 3
Brett,
riders
you're on in 30.
that are all trying to find their position with their sink and swim, with different riders trying to get in there. And then a couple of riders jump, and those jumps then cause gaps between the 3 of them. Caleb ends up on the back end of that. And the huge speeds that came through from Brett from his jump all the way to the front then
Brett,
rolls
you're
the
on
whole
10.
pack in this surge forward. The snowball effect is great in some ways, but if we have to
5,
hold up for other riders and other
4,
riders are wasting energy,
2.
those slingshots not the
1.
best.
Brett, you're
Slingshots
on.
to the front that carry
Peach, you're
speed for the
next.
whole pack. This is the
Eric, you're in the
principle.
hole.
Slingshots
Good job, guys. Looking
from
good.
roll through speed that bring the
Brett,
whole
push your
pack
way
with
to the
you
first
are fine on
Caleb, you want to
Audibles.
skip a pull?
But if it causes gaps and causes other to
Yes, please.
slingshot in ways that
Yeah.
cause disruption in the line with no draft, that's going to lose speed
I'm on
because
Eric.
people are going to have to wait, or people are going to have to put huge matches in and aren't getting the free speed from the draft. It's all about free speed from the draft, free speed from the draft in TTTs. As soon as that
Round and
stops
30.
happening, like you see in front of us with Flanders and Pete fighting each other right now, that situation right now, they're not getting the free speed that's needed.
Caleb, go to the back.
Great job, guys. Peach, you're on in 10.
Watch this
5,
next turn
4,
with
3.
Pete Mogg in
2,
just a second.
1.
He is fighting
Peach,
for
you're
the
on.
draft at this
Eric,
point, so
you're
he's not
next.
getting the free roll
Nathan,
through
you're in the
speed. And
hole.
Eric is actually just a bigger rider who's got big watts, and he's going to roll with a lot of speed in the flats. Pete needs every
Go, Pete.
bit
Up.
of draft roll through. He probably, if he had sauce up, he probably had a 0% at that moment that Brett pulled off. And the moment that Brett pulled off, Pete had 0 roll through speed, has to ramp back up to 7 watts per kilogram. Eric is already overtaking him. This is why order matters so much, and that free speed is being gotten before you hit
Eric,
the
you're on
front.
30.
And it matters, yes, that you ramp up before you actually let go of that other rider, and that the other rider is on your wheel at hopefully 1 to 2 watts per kilogram less, getting all the free speeds you can. They ramp up in with you, and then boom, off the front slingshot, you go to the back. But did you see how much was lost there with the overlap? Pete having to ramp back up
Eric, you're on in
because
10.
Eric had overlapped his wheel.
Roll, Eric,
Overlapping
roll.
the second rider
4,
is one of the things that can really, really mess up the speed at the front, as we just saw. So now look at this, though.
Nathan, you're
Right
next.
on the wheel, rolls right on through, carries all that speed. I jump on that wheel. As you can see, we hear the apologies also within here. A lot of the team understands this.
Yeah.
Look at Dan and Brett fighting. They're talking to each other about this here. Not getting the free speed. Dan's probably getting 0 at this point. Now Brett's getting 0. So these things are definitely something you really have to pay attention to as a team and understand where you're making the mistakes that are keeping the speed low.
You're only pulling 45 seconds. Lots of rest still. You'll still
Nathan, you're on in
have,
30.
you will still have 3 minutes of rest.
It's probably going to fall like on Dan or you, Brett.
Yeah.
Nathan, you're on in 10.
Pulling through, pulling through.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Now you see me call an audible
One.
here on the
Nathan, you're
timing
on.
because
Dan, you're next.
for me
Brett, you're in the
to
hole.
slow down at that point with the
Moving on to
free
50
speed
foot
that I got
perimeter,
from the
Dan, you'll be
flat or even
45.
downhill into this little uphill would have been just a
So you're
loss
gonna
of
lose the
speed.
30-second
If I would
counts,
have
just so
waited for
everybody
the
knows.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown, I would have
think it like
actually
a 20.
slowed my avatar and not
Actually,
rolled
do
through with
downhill
the
for a
speed
minute and then go to
because the
35.
incline would have slowed my avatar.
that?
Eric's avatar would have slowed as
Do
well, and I wouldn't have got the
downhill for a minute.
free speed that
All right.
comes
Things
into
over
a
35.
climb and got that little bit of a
That's it.
boost over the top. Everybody grabs onto
So
my
Pete,
wheel
you'll be at
then.
45.
Nobody is
Caleb's ahead of me now.
slinkied up. You don't have this
Further down.
this accordion effect forward for all of the
Don't worry.
avatars
I got it.
from behind into me. Now there needed to be awareness though of the team of that I was rolling through and the
we go.
speed held over the top because like in any bike race, solo,
That surge is
TTT,
fucking
doesn't
good,
matter.
man.
Now as you can see, Caleb going that surge, but really it's about the reality that there needed to
Daniel
be
on
an
your
awareness
5,
of we're coming over a bump,
4,
we're carrying speed over
3,
the top, and that we
2,
go with it.
1.
And there most likely was some sort of an accordion at the back
Daniel.
where
Stay there, Daniel.
riders bunched up, and then I went over the top. Instead of us all being in a straight line over the top, what ended up happening was there was a bunch up and then the accordion effect backward because not everybody anticipated the climb correctly. The bunch up then caused surge to get back into a straight line that then caused some struggling from the riders around.
All right, let's stick
Now,
with the order
one
we're
thing
at
to
right
really
now.
pay attention to here is the way that I back off
So,
way
Brett, you're
before
on
I
30.
end up on the wheels here. And I even
So
soft
Dan,
pedal
Brett, Carl,
just a
Caleb,
little bit to
Pete,
tell
Eric,
my
Nathan.
avatar to find that wheel ahead of me.
45.
In Zwift, there is a
Caleb,
little bit of finessing, really low wattage to
John.
let the avatar know and let the game know that you are
Brett, you're
trying to
only
hold the
10.
wheel that's in front of you. Really watch the timing that I look for here from first person point of view.
5,
It might not
4,
look
3, 2,
it might look like I'm
1.
pretty far off the
Brett, you're
back a
on.
lot of times,
Caleb, you're
but I'm
next.
slotting in
Pete,
from
you're
this
on.
first person point of view with the speed that I know I'm carrying up and back and
Brandon's
up
gonna
and
have to
back
go
from
next.
those
He
wheels
can't
that are in
run.
front of me.
All right.
Really with the depth
Yeah.
perception
Brett, you're
that I
on.
have
Eric, you're
learned
next.
as best as I
Caleb, you're in the
possibly
hole.
can to know whether or
Eric,
not
you'll
I'm
be at
going to
35 second
disrupt
pole.
that avatar in front of me and where it lines up with
We're being
its
gapped.
current line up with the
Way
avatars
too
in front
much,
of it. I do not want to push the rider in front of me at all and get as much draft out of it as I possibly can.
Back off just a little bit, Brett.
I can't pull after that.
That's exactly the problem.
Here's the splits at 14K. As you can see, we've opened up a little bit more of a gap. We're out to 31 seconds, so gaining 6 seconds through the last few kilometers.
Eric, you're on at 10.
Now, Brett has this idea right now, which I really like, and his surges I don't really have a problem with. It's just the fact that Caleb is still recovering, and a few others are still recovering
Eric, you're
from
on.
some of the mistakes that were made with the bunching up and the overlapping of the
Caleb, you're
riders
on.
earlier. Brett wants to go to 45-second pulls with a higher pace, though, at the later ends of the race here, in order to really get our speeds going. It's a good tactic, in my opinion. I'm not sure that we're prepared for it right now, especially with the way that we've already had
Come
to
on,
do
boys.
surging.
We're more than halfway. Come on now. We can bury ourselves.
The
We can afford to lose too.
I'm talking about losing 2 here, so maybe as we get in the
Especially
later
once we hit the climb.
parts
Take it
of
to
the
the climb,
of
all
this
in.
race here, I'm talking about maybe letting 1 or 2 go
Caleb, you're
in
on.
order to get the fastest time we possibly can if riders can't pull through at a high enough
Pete,
pace.
you're next. Nathan, you're in the hole.
Through the arcade here, the drafting is a lot more difficult, so a lot of times you do get a lot of
I
disruption.
got it. Don't worry. I got it. Just hold my wheel. Hold my wheel.
I know that that's the truth,
Yep.
so I go ahead and just take the lead here of the 3 others
you're on
that
at 10.
are struggling to hold the wheel at this point. I know that I've got a lot left in the bank, so I might as well do that for the riders. You can see my heart
5,
rate's at 158.
4, 3.
The other
2,
thing about this, though,
1.
is that
Pete, you're on. Nathan,
the
you're next.
surging earlier in order to get
Dan, you're
back on
home.
wheels, as you can see, it's really starting to put the hurt in because you only get so much glycogen stores. You only get so much energy in those over threshold efforts. That's really what uses up your energy stores when it comes to a team time trial. And you want to be able to only burn those matches on the front. When those matches are being used to close down gaps, you're not putting that speed on the front. It can't be
3,
emphasized enough.
2,
And now we
1.
start getting into situations
you're
where we
on.
had a plan
Dan,
to
you're
burn
next.
matches on the front,
Brett, you're
but
in the
there's
hole.
matches have already been used for other things other than speed.
on, Dan. There you go.
Dan, you're on in 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dan, you're on.
This sync
Brett,
right
you're
here,
next.
I think, is one of
Eric,
my
you're
better
on.
ones where I really jump right into the pack without having to disrupt anyone. I'm at a low enough watts per kilogram and speed that I'm not telling the other avatars that they need to move over for me, while at the same time keeping it just enough that I slot right in, have to do just a little kick, and then as you can see, I don't disrupt Pete at all in front of me. Absolutely one of the best I think I've had, and I think I was learning
Next
throughout
one,
even this team time trial, like, oh, you're kind of screwing this up. Let's see how you cannot wait. And I'm getting tired,
5,
so my
4,
body and my mind is saying,
3,
how can I reserve as much
1.
energy as possible
Brett,
to
you're on.
reduce the pain on the
Eric, you're
back?
next.
So that's definitely
Eric,
going
you're
on as
on.
well. You can see me kind of looking over a little bit to watch
Eric's not
where
there.
the riders
Eric's
were
not
and how
there.
quickly they were coming through on me. Just a moment ago, you heard Eric's not there. Eric's not there. Talking to Brett. The one of the riders that's with us, I think that might have been Pete, was saying, or maybe Dan, was saying, "Hey, look, man, you're surging,"
Dan.
and Eric was not in position, and that's super important as far as position. You can actually see Eric overlapping now because he had to come through a couple of riders. Eric's connection is not quite as good as some of the other riders here. I think he maybe lives in Alaska and he's was on a Wi-Fi setup. I'm not sure if he was on a Ethernet any longer, and I'm not sure about his PC as well. So he does struggle a little bit with trying to find his position
Caleb, I'm coming
within
back.
the team a lot of times. He has talked about that a lot in our WhatsApp group, and like he's made some upgrades and huge difference, I believe, for him. I'm gonna see if he can comment on the video actually about that, but and maybe even talk about it a little bit on live stream. But yeah, big difference. I think he said, and he definitely saw the difference when he went back and watched our videos with how difficult it is for him to make sure he finds the right position simply because of the difference in latency with his ping rate. Boniface now moving to the front. We start kind of getting into some audibles here because this is a downhill section. We really do need the speed. I went ahead and just called my own audible because I saw what was happening in separation in order to create that glue between the pack.
With a minute. Pop. 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 Eric. Eric's off.
Brett, go. Keep going, Brett. Keep going. I'm going next. I'm going next to 22. I'm going to 22.
All right.
So I made this call for Brett to keep going and not for others to carry through speed, essentially because I could tell that a lot of the pack at this point is suffering. The rest of the team is really, really hurting, and I know that I've got the power to go next and really make a lot of high speed and allow all of them to get some recovery at this point. As you can see, they're all trying to find their position. Things are getting really disorganized behind us at this point. So you can tell people are just struggling to
Pay
hang on
attention
and
to
try
what
and
you can do. Order
find
yourself
where
and let
they're
us
at.
know.
I start letting them
To
know,
reset.
hey, like, let us know, start communicating. Where are you at this point? What can you do? What can't you do? And don't overextend yourself. Make sure that you keep things in order so it doesn't mess everyone up. So I make that audible call to say, Brett, I know that Brett's got a little bit something left in the tank at that point and that I can take over next. So I just reorder us.
Yes, to 23.
Dan, you're on 30.
Going to this climb, I really wanted to make this the place where we gained the most time and just absolutely hammer it. As you can see, I'm really pushing at the front. Brett
Deep breaths, guys. Calm down.
has other ideas. He wants to climb it differently than my ideas were. And I think we ended up in a middle ground that was pretty good.
3.
There's one point where we do back off that I'm not sure it ended up gaining us the energy or the time it needed to. But let me know what you think in the comments.
Brett, go past me.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Dan, 6, buddy.
I know.
I know.
Hold it for a full minute, Dan, and I'll get you off. Let Brett pull up the hill. 20 seconds, Dan. You got this.
And here's the 20K split. So 23, 24. At this point, we are 55 seconds up. We've gained 31 seconds from that 14K marker. Not bad at all. Now, we do not have these live splits while we are racing. We can see the time difference between us and those who are chasing us. And if we are also getting a little bit there from OTRs, you can see Bishop 321 in the riders nearby. You can also see Epscape Finesse behind us at that 222. So it does give us an idea, but we definitely, because of the speed differentiations at each section of the course, being on a climb right now versus then maybe being on a downhill, it doesn't give you a very good idea of where you actually stand against those other teams at that point because of the big differences in those speed differentiations, because it can really close down seconds that they haven't actually gained on you.
That's doing awesome.
What's the good
Trust me.
Zwift number?
Trust me, boys.
We gotta go faster than this.
Stay behind Brett, man. Just like we did 2 weeks ago.
You can hear Brett saying, "Trust me," at 5.2. I really think that we should have been doing 6 at this point, and everybody
good,
could
guys.
have. But I'm not sure this gave us what we needed on the other end, because I don't think it would have changed the necessity for the kind of power outputs we needed on the downhill coming up.
I'm going to pick it up, and Dan is going to come through the group, and Nathan's going to get on his wheel. I will call it.
I do like this plan. He's thinking of reserving a little bit for a big surge over the top so that we can gain a ton of
5K,
speed.
guys. 5K.
I'm not sure that we executed it very well, though, but we'll see. He does tell me to go here in a second. The other thing that you heard a second ago is what's a good draft percentage in sauce. As you can see, you do get specific draft percentages in sauce. That's very different on the climb. In sauce, there is
Let me call it.
this percentage that I think is how much speed you're gaining, essentially, off of the draft that you're getting. And so how much free speed that is, I think, is really what that's all about.
Start overtaking. Nathan, get ready.
To answer that question, it's just really dependent on the current uphill gradient. It really, really changes how much free speed you get depending on the uphill gradient. As you can see here, we're now executing the plan that Brett had for the slingshot as we get into the flats, and then it's mainly downhill to the finish. So the whole idea here is to continually slingshot to the front with bursts. Free speed at the back.
Roll to each other.
And now you hear Brett saying nothing but audibles, nothing but audibles all the way to the finish. It's actually a really great call.
He's up on the snow bump.
But
He's up now.
as you can see, there's a lot of disorganization about who's going when, and we need a little bit more organization about who was going to go when, because now we get these slowdowns.
Man, you guys
everyone's
gotta audible
suffering.
better. Come on.
So you see me
Come on.
calling that out. Better audibles, come on. But people are suffering so bad at this point. And me and Brett end up gapping a little bit at times here. Really, we needed just the few that could. And I think we actually make a call here in a second that, okay, maybe just these ones are going to be surging and the rest sit in.
Roll through, guys. Just roll through and build speed.
Come on, back to front, back to front.
One thing I am seeing here is even this back to front thing could have been more organized where you plan it. You plan actually who, in an ordered way, who's going to go, who's going to go, who's going to go. And if you can't, you call it out that you can't. And that would have been a lot better for the ordering of the back to front, for exactly who is going to be doing those at the right time. Because if you're kind of confused about it, you might end up backing off rather than actually carrying the best speed through or fighting for the front as you both surge. And when that happens, it's one of the worst situations because you need everyone, especially when you're down to just 4 or 5 riders, to be surging as best as they possibly can.
Good job, Caleb. Brett, good work.
You still have to take it.
Right here, Brett made a huge roll through that I should have been aware of, actually. I could have been the one
Awesome.
that holds this. Instead, I was making Caleb do it, I thought. That's my mistake, because I was rolling through a speed. Caleb was going backwards at this point, and this gap actually forms probably because I wasn't paying that much of attention that I was the roll-through man, and now other riders are going to suffer because I did not roll through with the speed that I was on Brett's wheel with. I thought that Caleb was going to be able to hold on, but as you can see, with the amount of speed that was coming through from Brett, nobody's even getting a whole lot. We were getting something. Looking back, I was getting like 90%. I was really frustrated in the moment thinking that we'd really screwed up, but at least was getting some free speed. And as you can see, there is a roll through that comes, but Caleb's unable to hold. Brett's off the back. Caleb's gone now at this point. Now we're down to 3. So that's where things kind of got messed up and we had to slow down a little bit. So we really needed to have a better stick together here. I'm shaking my head, but it's okay.
Come on!
I'm just in that last moments of like, oh, competition to the line. We got to make it. Caleb really pulls through here. He's so suffering, and good on him. And we have a super solid time, actually, by the end.
A little gap to Caleb. There we go.
Big sprint to the line. Once Caleb was back on terms, it's just everything you got, making sure that we get across with every split second, because it can be every millisecond. We end up with a 109 gap back to Dirty Rascals Riot. Solid job there by the team. And we win the America's West A1, and I think we got 5th overall in the world on the day. I thought we had done better than that, but, you know, little mistakes here and there, and we're also probably almost a full watt per kilogram less, the half a watt per kilogram less than some of the really top teams. So really the TTT tactic and the way that we were able to mold this team together with our tactics in the TTT gets us so much free speed, actually. So big shout out to the team. There's a couple places that we could gel better, figure out how to make that happen. We finished with 4, exactly what we talked about. Let go who we need to, put in those burns that we possibly can.
What a ride, boys.
And thanks everybody for watching.
Amazing.
Go check out,
Congratulations, guys.
if you want to watch this stuff live, check it out over on Twitch. .tv/Nathan Guerra, and comment, subscribe, like, do all the cool stuff, helps out the channel, and be on the watch out for tomorrow's release for Zwift Racing League. We will be uploading every Wednesday while in season.